It's been heralded by many as the greatest superhero movie of all time. It's already being compared to The Dark Knight and Avengers Infinity War. Its production has been mired in controversy, suffering setback after setback. It's lost directors, writers, actors, while keeping some actors it probably should have got rid of. But somehow, despite it all, The Flash has released in theaters. So that begs the question, is it any good? Nope. Hello, I'm Marvin, and I'm the Movie Monster. For our first ever segment of Marvin Reviews, we're taking a look at The Flash, starring Michael Keaton as Batman. Or at least that's what the marketing for this film wants you to believe. From its inception, the studio has tried to shield this film in a bat-shaped cocoon of nostalgia and earned goodwill. After all, it's a movie with not one, but two Batmen. It features the first cinematic appearance of Supergirl in 39 years. I mean, it promised cameo after cameo and was meant to be a love letter to all DC fans. Except it's none of those things. This movie is actually another directionless, soulless DC on-screen abortion designed as a vehicle for an actor with a criminal rap sheet as long as Ron Jeremy's schwanz. Not one, but two Batmen can't stop the steady train of awfulness that is not one, but two Ezra Millers, starring as Barry Allen in name only. Reviews on this channel are gonna work as such. We're dividing this into three sections: the good, the bad, and the spoilers. That means 2/3 of this review will be completely spoiler-free, and those of you that don't want to hear about specifics will have the option of ducking out before we wade into those waters. Let's start with the good. Well, there's Batman, and that's about it. Michael Keaton absolutely shines as Bruce Wayne, fitting back into the old role as though he never left it. It's a genuine joy to see Keaton in the cape and cowl again, and there were a few moments that were so good, they made me almost forget that I was watching a film starring an accused pedophile. The marketing for this movie was very Bat-centric, with the studio wanting us to believe that this was a Batman movie masquerading as a Flash film. Unfortunately, that's not the case. While Keaton steals every scene that he's in, he doesn't show up until almost halfway through this train wreck, so you got a lot of dreck to slog through before you can get to the good stuff. And when this movie is good, it's really freaking good. Seeing Keaton back in the iconic suit, flying the Batwing and doling out fistful of justice right into the stupid face of evil never gets old. The best thing I could say about this is that in a few months' time, it's gonna be really fun to watch Keaton compilation videos on YouTube from this movie. But while his performance is iconic, it's not good enough to actually sit through the nearly 2.5-hour runtime of this bloated nothing burger of a film. Then you have my darling Ben. I enjoy Batfleck, however I feel as though Mr. Affleck's been dealt a raw deal over the years with the role. He's in the same boat as Henry Cavill. You know the two of them have it in them to be the definitive Batman and Superman on screen, however they're trapped in movies written and directed by clueless, bumbling, egomaniac hacks who just don't get these characters on a basic, fundamental level. In this movie, for the first time ever, I felt as though Affleck got to actually be the Batman. Despite the fact that he's out in broad daylight, Ben is able to show us the skill, efficiency, adaptability, and compassion that was so perfectly encapsulated in the performances of Kevin Conroy over the years. Rest in power, King. Ben is easily one of the best things about this movie, which is sad when you consider that he is under 10 minutes of actual screen time. I think what I appreciated the most about Batman in this movie is that he never murdered anyone with a gun. Unfortunately, that is where the line is. But that's a rant for a different day. Oh, and believe me, it's coming. The Flash's director, Andy Muschietti, is that how you pronounce that? Whatever, I don't care. Was recently announced to be directing Batman the Brave and the Bold as part of James Gunn's new DC Cinematic Universe. I actually think this is a good move, because if there was one thing this guy did right in this film, it was Batman. He clearly gets the character in a way most other directors clearly don't. Very clearly. Alright, that's all the good, so let's get on to the bad. Strap yourselves in, we're gonna be here a while. The worst thing about this movie is Ezra Miller as Barry Allen. That should come as no surprise, as his portrayal of Barry in the theatrical cut of Justice League, or Justice League as it's known, is the worst part of that film as well. To his credit, he wasn't the worst part of the Snyder Cut of Justice League. That was Zack Snyder. Miller's modern-day Barry Allen is his clear attempt at proving to Hollywood that he's leading man material. It fails spectacularly. Every attempt at a serious moment falls even flatter than his attempts at humor. Criminal history aside, not everyone is cut out to carry a movie of this length and magnitude. Ezra Miller is one such person. Then you have his second role, that of past Barry Allen. This was, and I am not exaggerating, the most annoying character I have ever endured in the history of cinema. Infinitely more annoying than anything Jar Jar Binks did at his very worst.
Remember the swamp? Remember my song in the swamp when I was like, whap, chicka, whap, whap, chicka, whap.
Yes, even that. Young Barry's every action irritates and grates from the second he's introduced. He's meant to be a comic relief of the movie, and every single attempt at humor is cringe-inducing and made me root for Zod. Oh, speaking of Zod, he was a non-entity. Michael Shannon looked honestly befuddled to find himself back in the DC universe. He clearly didn't care about this project or want to be there in any way. There's phoning it in, but Shannon basically texts in his performance, and you almost catch him rolling his eyes several times. Of course, we can't ignore the life and crimes of Ezra Miller. Miller infamously was arrested several times for crimes that range from assaulting and choking a woman on camera, to felony burglary, to kidnapping and accusations of grooming and pedophilia. It was the most public of public meltdowns, with so much hard evidence that if it were you or me, we'd be buried under the jail. Warner Brothers saw fit to stay the course on Miller. I'd like to remind you that this is the same company that fired Johnny Depp for accusations of abuse that turned out to be a big fat lie. But of course, this is also the company that'll be rolling out Depp's abuser in an upcoming film as well, so I'll let you draw your own conclusions. Simply put, the mere sight of Miller in this film was enough to make my eye twitch. It's impossible to separate art from the artist when the artist is accused of abducting people and chokes women on camera. But I will say, the video where Miller gets arrested and keeps trying to bait the cops into saying something transphobic so he can flip the script on them was a lot more entertaining than this movie.
I'm not transgender, non-binary. I don't want to be searched by a man. I'm transgender, non-binary, and I don't want to be searched by a man. I claim my Fourth Amendment rights. What's your badge number? Tell me your name and your badge number. What? Hey, you just touched my penis. Sorry, sir.
I'm sorry. I'm not a sir. I'm transgender, non-binary. Okay. Please never refer me as sir. It's not a man right here.
Okay. I was just trying to be respectful.
If you fail to do that again, that is an act of intentional bigotry, and it is a technical hate crime according to U.S. federal law.
Another thing working against Miller is the fact that for the last decade, we've all had a Flash who embodied what it means to be Barry Allen. Now, say what you will about that show's declining quality over the years, and believe me, I'm going to say a lot about it in the future, but Grant Gustin to many of us is the Flash. And these Barry Allens are so wildly different from one another that it's easy to choose your favorite. For example, one's likable, one isn't. One's an accused pedophile, the other isn't. One had genuine moments on screen, ranging from fun to dramatic, and the other's Ezra Miller. But enough about this waste of space. I don't want to look at him anymore. I also don't want to look at anything on this screen, because boy howdy, the CGI in this movie is borderline horrifying. It's honestly stunning to see that in an era where we got a live-action Thanos that looked this good, a major movie with the bloated insanity that was The Flash's budget could produce CGI on the level of 2001 Spider-Man. Certain moments in this film look like a PS2 cutscene. And like early generation PS2, not Final Fantasy X PS2. And then there was Kara, or at least this person who we're led to believe is Kara Zor-El. As a massive Superman fan, I was highly irritated that he was written out of the story to be replaced by his cousin. But then, the Kara that we got looked and acted nothing like the Kara we've all come to know and love. And yes, I love Supergirl. I think she's an incredible character. I'm looking forward to seeing her come to life on the big screen. But Supergirl's story is infinitely more interesting when Superman is present. Seeing her baby cousin all grown up and now taking a mentor role for her presents interesting challenges for the character. It creates a three-dimensional being who was masterfully brought to life and captured in the animated movie Superman Batman Apocalypse. What we're given here is a bland wooden plank with the personality of Driftwood, who serves no purpose to the plot other than to punch Zod a bunch of times. Kara is a non-entity, a sour singular note who does nothing to advance the plot and never stands out in a film that was begging for literally anyone else to take the spotlight. What's even worse is that this Kara Zor-El was originally meant to replace Superman going forward in the DC universe. That was the big brainchild of, as Gary from Nerdrotic correctly points out, the world's dumbest company, Warner Brothers. Of course, that was before it was purchased by Discovery. Supergirl and Batgirl were going to be replacing Superman and Batman, to the delight of a bunch of purple-haired holdos and activists who were never going to see these movies in the first place. Now, thankfully, those plans were scrapped and common sense won the day. We're going to get a DC universe that has room for both Superman and Supergirl, neither of which need to take over for the other. I will say, Kara had the potential to be another insufferable one-dimension perfect girl boss in this movie, but thankfully it never goes there. She's just nothing, and frankly this actress and the character deserves more. Now we're entering the spoiler zone, so if you don't want this movie spoiled for you, then bow out now and I'll see you in the next one. For those of you still here, let's talk about this movie's cameos. I know WB spoiled most of them already, but I have never been more let down by anything since my first viewing of Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. Seriously? Martha? Ugh, I hate you. Cameos of Christopher Reeves, Adam West, Helen Slater, George Reeves, and even Nicolas Cage are nothing more than poorly rendered and strikingly bad CGI cartoons that for the most part just stand around and look at things. Seriously, you can't even suspend your disbelief long enough to believe that these are anything but glorified Pixar characters. Then you have yet another pointless Gal Gadot Wonder Woman cameo. Now, I liked Gal Gadot as Diana. She was a bright spot in some dim movies, and her first Wonder Woman movie ranks up there with the best DC movies and is by far the best female-led superhero film of all time. It falls apart in Wonder Woman 1984 when Patty Jenkins made her a rapist, but that's another story for another day. But her only involvement in DC movies of late has been quick little cameos in projects like Peacemaker, Shazam 2, and now this movie. She pops in just to crack a little wise and rehash the same tired lasso of truth joke that was already done in Justice League. Finally, there's George Clooney rising out of the car at the end of the movie. Now, some people were disappointed by this, but I have a different take. Does this mean that Ezra Millers' Flash has been relegated to the Batman and Robin universe? Because if so, then good on you, DC. Keeping that version of Barry out in the superhero film equivalent of the darkest circle of hell is a fitting punishment indeed. Speaking of our friend Ezra, in touching once more on his criminal ways, was anyone else creeped out that they left in a scene where a bunch of tween girls fawn over the accused pedophile and scream about how much they love him?
Flash! No.
Hi.
I love you!
That one could have stayed on the cutting room floor, guys. Now, this movie pulls from a lot of past DC movies while also breaking the rules established in those films. For example, in Man of Steel, it said the Kryptonians go into sensory overload on Earth at first until they learn to control their powers. It took Clark literal years to block out the noise, control his X-ray vision, and learn to fly. It even takes Zod out completely at first. He's only able to overcome it because he's a trained warrior. From the moment a ray of sunshine touches Kara, she's Supergirl. She's flying around using heat vision and is in perfect control of her abilities. Also, it was nice of those Russian mercenaries to let her keep her Supergirl suit in the prison cell with her. Then the one that boggled my mind the most. Apparently now the Flash can't grab people and move them anymore. I seem to remember a scene in Justice League where that's literally all he did. My point here is if you're going to operate in an established canon, don't break that canon the first chance you get. I call this the X-Men paradox. Finally, we have the villain of the movie. Is it Eobard Thawne, the reverse Flash of Professor Zoom based on your source material? You know, the actual villain of Flashpoint, the material that this is loosely based on? Nope, it's yet a third Ezra Miller, playing the Black Flash. Not to be confused with Black Spider-Man or the Black Little Mermaid. This reveal was beyond contrived, highly telegraphed, and didn't even end in a cool speedster fight scene. What an absolute waste. Oh, and speaking of Flashpoint, that's not the first movie you do for a character like the Flash. You need to establish the world he lives in before you go changing it completely. Otherwise, we don't have any connection to what's different and how the events of the past shaped him as a character. That's like starting out Batman with The Dark Knight Returns, or jumping into the death of Superman before building up Superman's meaning to the world. Oh, wait. Look, say what you will about the CW Flash show and the reasons why it started to suck so hard. but it did a great job of centering a lot of Barry's character around the death of Nora Allen. Right from Jump Street and up until the last 4 episodes of the series, that event was meaningful for us. It created the entire meaning behind Run, Barry, Run.
Run, Barry, run! You, Barry, you can stop it. You can do this now. Run, Barry, run! Run, Barry, run.
In here, it's just a thing that happened. Nora Allen, who's inexplicably Sophia Loren levels of Italian for whatever reason, is just murdered, and Barry's sad about it. We never even find out what happened or who did it. Instead of going back in time and decking Thawne in the face to stop his mother's death, Barry moves a can of tomatoes. I like the concept of them not being able to defeat Zod without Superman. You had Kara and Batman dying over and over again. It was a nice touch. I also love the way Bruce faced off with enemies thousands of times superior to him. He was jumping on Nam and planting bombs on him and whatnot. That's exactly what I thought he should have been doing in the Doomsday fight in BVS. It's how he's always done things in the animated series and movies, and it was cool to see. But why was Michael Keaton's Batman a recluse? There was no reason for it given. He was just recluse Batman because... He mentions that there's no more crime in Gotham. I don't think that's true. Maybe there's no more organized crime, Bruce, but I'm sure people are still getting gunned down in alleys. You know, like your parents. All in all, The Flash is a disjointed mess that ends the ill-fated Snyderverse, a cinematic horror show that was defined by disjointed messes. If this was what we had to sit through to finally say farewell to Snyder and his horrible, dour, dismal take on the DC universe, then fine. I do, however, think that this movie's marketing is going to work against it. They're calling it the greatest superhero movie of all time. It's not even the best superhero movie of the last year. Hell, it's not even the 3rd best. If people went in with no expectations, they might find some enjoyment in this mess. But to go in with those lofty statements hovering over the film, well, much like I said to my last sexual partner, you're in for a major disappointment. Let's all just look forward into the future and hope that James Gunn gives us something worthwhile. In conclusion, I give The Flash 2 Ezra Miller arrest warrants out of 5, based solely on Michael Keaton and Ben Affleck's performances as Batman. Alright, that does it for this one. As always, please like, comment, subscribe, click the little bell gimmick up there, and you can get notified of new videos. Share the channel with a friend or family member of yours who is just as angry about the state of modern Hollywood. It would really help our new channel out. Well, until next time, I'm Marvin the Movie Monster, and I'm pissed off.